Welcome to the Cash Flow Couple Podcast. I am your hostess with the mostest, Wendy Williams. How you doing? Here in the garage with my husband, John Williams.
How you doing?
I'm watching the dog chase a frog.
Oh yeah, so it's after dark here in the garage today. Have we talked about the frogs before?
Nope, we have Fred and Wilma.
Yes, and they live in a hole outside of our garage in the ground.
And they have multiplied into Bam Bam and
the children.
Yeah.
The frog children. But the reason they like us is because we have the garage lights that come on automatically every night, and it attracts their prey.
And they're hunters, man.
They are. I never realized that about frogs, like how predatory they really were. You just think about them like sitting around on lily pads and stuff. Not these frogs.
No.
They see a bug, man, they go for it, and they're just like snapping. It's gone.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to watch.
Yeah.
So we just got done setting up unit number 7. So
yes, we did.
I'm glad that it's over, and it is going to be booked like crazy.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I really like it.
Very excited. Tomorrow we have the photographers coming, and they're coming to clean the carpets, and then we are going to get it professionally cleaned, and it is going to be ready to go.
Yes, and last night we stayed there overnight.
Oh, it was so fun.
And so we talked about that. You should always test it, right? You should always, once you set one up, go test it out, test out everything. And so we stayed there last night. And then today, what was really cool is this one's close enough to Uptown Charlotte that you can actually walk there. So we walked Uptown Charlotte, and then we got those scooters. I don't know if you have those in your town, but around here there's 3 of them. There's Lime and
Bird,
and then the other one's called Spin, I think. And they're all similar. There's these electric scooters that, you can download an app on your phone, and then you scan the barcode, and then you can ride them around. And of course you pay for it, but they're really cool. Was my first time on them.
Me too.
And they go a lot faster than I thought they would.
No, CJ was zooming.
Yes. Because I thought it would be, the kids have those little electric scooters, but they're not that fast.
No, they are not that fast.
This thing was serious business. It was really cool. So we rode those back to the place.
And it's cool because you could just leave them anywhere.
Right. So you could you ride them up to the curb or whatever, and you say, I'm done, and you just leave it. And I guess they have somebody that comes around and picks them up later or whatever.
Yeah, and it's all in an app.
Or somebody else can
really
rent
cool.
it, I guess.
It's really, really cool. That was so fun. We had a great day.
It was really fun.
It was really cool.
But anyway, today we decided we should come up with a little bit different topic because we get this question a lot.
Well, we've already been through what customer do you serve, right? And finding the correct location and why you need to pick that location. And then we talked about what you should put in your units. And then we talked about setting up a unit. So the next thing that you do, it just seemed logical, is to set it up on the channels, right?
Yeah, like what platform should you? I mean,
That's right.
I get that all the time. Do I Airbnb only? Should I be on HomeAway also? What about, Booking.com? Or there's all sorts of different. Flipkey, ever heard of that one?
I've never heard of Flipkey before.
There's a ton of them. There's a ton of places where you can actually list your place. Expedia. You can be on TripAdvisor. You can now just be on Google. Did you know that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw that.
So it's like, where do I list and all this kind of thing.
So what's your opinion on that?
Well, I think if it's your first one, or at least for a while, anyway, even if you start out with 3 or whatever, at the very beginning, I would say stick on Airbnb. It was explained to me as it's kind of the training wheels of short-term rentals, and that's
they
true.
do a lot for you.
No, yeah, I mean, you don't realize that, you don't fully appreciate it until you move to another platform and something happens. Which we've had happen, right?
Ask us how we know.
Yeah. And so I would say, start on Airbnb. It's the big one anyway. I mean, you're going to get a ton of bookings from Airbnb, probably, depending on
Well,
your
it's
area.
the most famous one out there.
Yeah, and in fact, people call them Airbnbs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's become a household name.
Yeah, so I definitely start there. And you were talking about the next thing you do is set up your listing. Well, we actually set up our listing before we get done, which is a nice little tip. You know, just because you're not done setting it up doesn't mean you can't go ahead and create the listing. Even if you don't have pictures, just put a picture that says coming soon, and you'll be surprised the bookings you can actually get before you're even ready to accept them. And you just block your calendar off until you're ready, of course, or you're going to be ready. But I think that's a really good tip. If somebody told me that, and I was like, who's going to book a place without pictures?
People do.
But people do. If it's available and it's at the right price, and especially what helps is once you have more than one, when they ask you, hey, do you have pictures? You can say, well, we haven't had the pictures yet. We're still setting it up, but here's our other ones, and it'll be of similar quality. And of course, you have reviews at those that are good, and the pictures at the other ones look good, and then it's easier to make the sale. If it's your first one, it's a little harder, I guess, because you don't have anything to go on, but you'll be surprised, especially on Airbnb specifically. When you first set up a new listing, they're going to ask you, hey, do you want to give a 20% discount to the first 3 people that book?
Yes.
And the answer is yes, you do. Even if you're going to mark it up 20%, right? And then offer the 20% discount. But
so that's the way to go right there.
Yeah, sure. But what it'll do is it'll bump you in the listings.
Well, even a new listing gets bumped.
And it's a new listing. It'll get bumped for that. But offering the discount is even more. And there are people that will book it just for the discount, even without pictures. Even if by the numbers, truly, it's not a discount, meaning you marked it up 20% and then gave them 20% off. You got to get what you got to get to be profitable.
That's a little golden nugget right there.
That's another little gold nugget. Always do that, actually, on our new ones. But there you go. But I would start on Airbnb.
Yeah, that's like 2 gold nuggets that you just dropped.
So as far as other platforms, I can tell you what we did. The very next place we went was HomeAway, and HomeAway and Vrbo are the same now. So,
and I didn't realize that HomeAway and Vrbo were the same company.
Well, they used
for a
to
long
be different
time.
companies, but one bought the other. I can't remember. One of them is owned by Expedia.
That's what happened. Okay.
And Expedia is really the parent company, as I understand it. So the good news is when you list on a HomeAway, you're also listed on Vrbo,
right,
or VRBO. You're also listed on Expedia, actually, if you choose to instant book, and in some cases anyway, I think. But especially if you choose instant book, which you should, I would always advise that. But you'll get that exposure. In fact, I did something fun the other day. I took the title of one of our listings and just stuck it in Google. And what's interesting is all the places it shows up because it's on HomeAway. So it showed up on Expedia. It showed up on HomeAway, of course. It showed up on VRBO, of course, or Vrbo. But it also showed up other places like, it's not TripAdvisor, but it's something like that. I forget the other one. But they have a whole network. And it's very interesting. But what's interesting about those other platforms, like, Airbnb is one thing. HomeAway, Vrbo is very similar in their customer type they serve and all that kind of thing. You're expecting someone's home or their apartment, or you expect it to be a room share. But when you go to it, I don't know about you, but when I go to Expedia.com, I'm expecting hotel rooms.
Well, that's what they're known for.
That's how they were set up. So for example, when you go on an Airbnb, it's all, it's that house, it's the pictures of that house, the inside, the amenities of that house. But when you go to say an Expedia, even if it's a house, it's going to say 1 rooms, it's going to have that hotel language.
Right. Yes, it does.
And it almost looks like you're booking, it's the same interface as if it was a hotel room, but except for it's a house. And you don't have that same kind of culture. That wasn't the way it was originally intended to be. And so they've just kind of almost just plugged houses into it, I guess, to compete with the Airbnbs of the world. But it's stranger, and I think that's why you don't get as many, or at least we tend not to get as many bookings through their affiliates as we do through Airbnb and HomeAway/Vrbo.
And I think you're right, because most of our customers are thinking, well, if I wanted to book a hotel, I would go on Expedia or Trivago or any of those kind of websites. But if I really wanted to book a house, then, I'm thinking more Airbnb and HomeAway.
Yeah. And they do advertise that they offer homes now, I've noticed, even on like booking.com does that, and some others.
Yeah, but I think it's just going to take a little while in the consumer consciousness,
yes, because that's not their brand,
right,
really.
Exactly.
They've just kind of added it.
Exactly. So,
but we do get bookings from them.
Yeah.
I'd occasionally get, in fact, even more so a little now, maybe just because it's been around a little longer. But I do get bookings through HomeAway that will say, Expedia member or one of their, affiliates. But vast majority of them are HomeAway or Vrbo.
Yeah, I think it's just going to take a little while for that to catch on in the consumer consciousness, But
let's go back to why not just list on all of them?
Right. So you say to start on Airbnb. So tell us why you say that.
Well, they're doing a lot of things for you that you don't realize. For example, because they're so, and it goes back to our conversation we were just talking about, because those other sites weren't really designed with the idea that people would be renting out their homes or rooms in their homes or all that kind of thing. They were more set up for hotels, right? And hotels are just much more impersonal. So when you rent a hotel, you expect that there's going to be a front desk, and you're going to show up and you're going to show your ID and you're going to show your credit card and sign a little thing for incidentals. That's the standard, right? And then they give you your key card and you go up to your room. It's not like that when you rent a house that's, say, an Airbnb. It's okay. It could be like we started. It was our home. It's just the basement. You show up. We're here. There's no front desk, and there's no. We're just people with a house and a basement. We don't have a rental agreement, and we don't know to ask for your credit card and your ID, and so they're handling things that are complicated like that for people that aren't really in business, like taking credit card payments, like doing background checks, like asking for ID, like verifying your email address and your phone number, like having a review system. You realize that most other Airbnb is very unique in the sense that hosts can review guests and guests can review hosts.
Well, you can do that in HomeAway as well, but it's not as...
HomeAway is very close. But here's the difference. HomeAway is not necessarily checking ID for you. HomeAway is not necessarily providing a rental agreement. You have to provide that. In fact, I'll give you a really good example. We had someone stay with us, and here's the thing, we did not know this when we first started. So when we had the basement and it was in our home, it's a lot easier to control. And I think you scare off a lot of people that would be scammers because you're on site, because it's your home. So we had the basement listed on Airbnb and HomeAway/Vrbo forever, right? And there was never a problem, no big deal. Most of our bookings came from Airbnb, but some of them came from HomeAway, and it was kind of the same and no big thing. And so when we went and got our first and second units beyond that, we did the same thing. I put them on Airbnb. I put them on HomeAway. No big deal. We got our first HomeAway guest at our Maywood property.
That was the second one the second
unit that we acquired outside the basement. So it was actually our third unit, but it was the second one in quick succession, right? And we got a HomeAway guest, and they came and they absolutely trashed the place. They were the ones that it looked like our target market. It was a man, a wife, and a toddler. And we didn't kind of think anything of it. And we had gone out of town. I think we told this story. This is one of our horror stories. We'd gone out of town and we get a call from the cleaners, and they say, "Hey man, this place is trashed. Your towels were thrown away in the trash outside. There's silverware in the driveway. There's
silverware in the driveway."
Yes. I mean, that's weird, right?
It is so weird.
Glass is broken, all this kind of stuff. And so just like I would have on Airbnb, I messaged the guest and charged them $500 for it. Probably could have charged them more, but I sent them a request for $500. You know what they did? Did a chargeback on their credit card.
Said it wasn't them.
Yes.
And they had used a fraudulent credit card to book it.
Did a chargeback on their credit card, not for the $500, which they never paid, but for the reservation. And it was like a $700-800 reservation. And so I called HomeAway and they said, "Well, we don't take the payments. We have a third-party processor that does that." And I'm like, "Okay, I didn't realize that." And so we call them and they're like, "Yeah, if you can prove that this person stayed there, meaning you have a copy of their photo ID and you have a copy of a rental agreement, then and pay us $250, we will fight it, basically. And you may or may not win." Well, we didn't know we were supposed to have a copy of a photo ID because it never been a problem before. And it's not a problem if you're on Airbnb because Airbnb is doing that for you. And Airbnb has a customer service you can call and they'll mediate between you and the guest. And HomeAway was kind of like, not our problem. You know, we did our job. We brought you a guest. It's your job to, you know, do all the validation and all that kind of thing. And by the way, when they pay, well, you need to validate that too. And so we lost quite a bit of money not knowing just what we didn't know. Because we thought HomeAway was just like Airbnb, and it's not. It's a totally different platform. And so we had to adjust. And what we started doing was when we get a booking on HomeAway or VRBO or wherever it comes from, we then ask them to sign a rental agreement and ask them for a copy of their photo ID. And I make sure that the person that shows up is the person in the ID. And I make sure that the ID matches the credit card that was used. Because I know that it's now my responsibility as a business owner to do that. And now I'm acting more like a business, more like a hotel for lack of a better word, than I am when I'm on Airbnb. Because they're doing all that stuff for me. And that HomeAway is not. But at least HomeAway kind of looks like Airbnb. So you get a similar type client. The third platform we moved to was Booking.com. Booking.com is very much also like we said Expedia, right? It's very much hotel oriented, even though they've changed some recently that makes it a little better because they're trying to compete more with Airbnb. And short side note, did you know that Booking.com lists more houses than Airbnb does?
Wait, what? Really?
Yes, they actually have more listings for Airbnb style properties than Airbnb does.
No kidding.
Because they're worldwide.
Ah.
But at the same time, at least here in the US, the perception of Booking.com to us is that's where you go to get a hotel room. And so their interface is very much that way.
Yeah, they've branded themselves that way.
And Booking.com is even less friendly, even though I said they have gotten more friendly more recently. But it used to be on a Booking.com that, hey, you were responsible for taking payment even. Now they will actually do the payments for you at least. But at the same time, it's your job to prove that that person is who they say they are. It's your job to make sure you get a rental agreement. It's your job, if you cancel on that person, to find them additional or alternate accommodations. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
So if somebody books with you on Airbnb, for example, and you cancel on them, it's bad because Airbnb is going to penalize you, but it's a slap on the wrist. Booking.com, you're contractually obligated to find that person alternate accommodations.
For the same price, or?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I didn't know that.
Meaning you have to relocate them. So if I have somebody coming on a booking.com for next week and we just decide, hey, we don't want to rent to them for whatever reason, and I cancel on them, I have to go basically book them a hotel room.
You have to pay for it?
Yes. Just like a hotel would if you couldn't accommodate somebody. And that's part of the terms of service of being on a booking.com.
Really?
So it's, yeah.
Oh,
so
that
it's stuff like that you don't realize. That you can really get yourself in trouble if you just, as a newbie, say, hey, I just want to be everywhere. Because you're not thinking through, you don't have all the processes in place necessarily to operate that way. And so that's why I say, I hope I scared you enough to, hey, just operate on Airbnb for a while. You know,
yeah, because they do a whole lot for you.
Stay off of everywhere else until you get yourself to a point where you're operating more like a business. You have a way to take direct bookings. You have a way to process your own payments. You have a system, you know, some experience dealing with guests. Because when you're in an Airbnb situation, you can always call them and they can help you. When you're in the wild, wild west of these other platforms, you're in an environment where you're more on your own and they're expecting you to be more of a business than just an amateur. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand.
I mean, if all goes well, and you never have a problem, it's never a problem.
Well, it's better to be prepared.
But you won't know until you know. And then you'll be like, I didn't know that, or I didn't realize that, because you're used to Airbnb and you don't realize all the things they're doing for you behind the scenes. But if I was going to go a second place, exactly what we did, we went to HomeAway. But just make sure when you move to HomeAway that you're aware of those payment issues and you're aware that you need to do more due diligence yourself on your guests. And for us, that means I need a rental agreement and I need a photo ID of the person that used the credit card. And on a booking.com, I'm going to make dang sure that I don't rent and then have to cancel, you know, unless I mean, stuff happens, but I got to make sure I do that. Now, there are advantages to being on multiple platforms beyond
more exposure for sure.
It's more exposure for sure. But realize the real way you should look at the different platforms is not more exposure to more people. It is. But even beyond that, what I would say is that they all have their own purpose. They have different purposes.
Right, because HomeAway attracts more families.
Well, realize these are marketing channels. So you have to start looking at them that way. And that's one of the reasons we don't say, hey, you know, this is an Airbnb business, or this is a HomeAway business, or this is because you got to think of those as these are channels from which to acquire customers. And these different channels themselves market differently to their customers. You know, just think about their whole job is to bring you customers. Airbnb doesn't rent a thing. They're an intermediary. They're a marketing company. Booking.com is a heavy marketing company. If you've ever been to their website or given them your email or your physical address, I get direct mail from them. I get emails from them. I get, you know, targeted ads from them. They are relentless. They are a marketing company, but little else. You know, they don't have all the other stuff and systems that Airbnb is doing for you. Right? So, but they attract a different type of customer because they market to a different type of customer.
That's a good way to think about the platforms, is to think of them as just marketing platforms, really.
Yes, they're marketing channels.
So they're doing the marketing for you.
They are companies that you are ultimately paying to bring you customers.
So how do you so how does that work? So really you're basically just paying Airbnb to market customers for you.
More or less, yeah. because they're taking a piece of the transaction.
That's right. Because
So, like, yeah,
that's right. They do. They take a piece. Like, because if you look at it, if you look on when you get a reservation, it will say fees on there.
well, yeah, you'll see what the customer paid, and then you'll see what you get,
Isn't that crazy?
and there's a difference.
That the customer will pay like $700 for a reservation, but you only get, and it'll also say on there your payout, and your payout's like $500
It could be, yeah. I don't know if those are the right numbers
or whatever.
But yeah, you're right. You'll look at it and say, "Man, I wish I could have gotten all of that."
And you're like, "What? How much
realize,
fees are they charging?"
Well, you're paying for a service. I can tell you. So Airbnb's this is a difference between the platforms as well. So Airbnb is charging the host currently 3%. And basically that's because they're taking payment for you, you can look at that as your credit card processing fee. Because you're going to pay that anyway.
Right. You'd have to pay that anyway.
You might pay a little less, but more or less that's what they're charging you for is the process the payment for you. But then on the guest side, they're charging them 10 to 12%.
That's ridiculous.
Well, is it? I mean, you can say it's ridiculous.
Well, I don't know. What do you get?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's ridiculous. It's like this. What kind of interest rate is ridiculous?
I don't know. It just seems extreme to me.
Is 100% ridiculous?
Yes.
Does 100% paying 100% interest matter if you're going to make 1,000% on a deal? We've had this discussion before, right?
No, it doesn't.
So what's the customer worth to you?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Because I just told you all the things Airbnb is doing for you. They're screening the guest. They're verifying their email address and their phone number. They are providing the host guarantee, which I think is kind of whatever, but they will pay out if the guest doesn't. So there's some form of insurance there. They will mediate with the guest. I mean, they are providing quite a bit of services beyond just bringing you a customer.
Well, there's no doubt about that.
So if you had to do all of those things yourself, is that 10%?
You mean, is that worth 10%?
Is it worth 10%? So yeah, I mean, your first thought might be, hey, that's ridiculous, but do you have all those systems?
Yeah, we do now.
Would you have gotten the booking in your own on yourself?
I doubt
without them?
I doubt it.
So you made money. So some money is better than no money. And you would probably had no money had you not listed with Airbnb. So I'm kind of playing devil's advocate to say, I don't know if it's ridiculous or not. It's what they probably have to be profitable. But I will say this, that I don't want to pay that more than once, which is another reason I don't want to be an Airbnb business. So if I get a customer, I want to be able to then market back to them directly because I know there's someone who's already spent money with me, who I've served, who is familiar with me, who if they're coming back to the area, I would rather them not book through Airbnb again because I've already paid Airbnb for their services and already know this customer. And I know they were a good guest or they were a bad guest. And so their value becomes less to me because they're giving me the same customer they've already given me. And so I think a lot of people make that mistake, even though I say, hey, start out on Airbnb and stay there a while. It's so you can have time to learn and get seasoned and have a bad guest or two, and see how you can handle different situations before you get yourself in trouble. But once you get that experience, then you can start moving to other platforms. And then ultimately, you shouldn't need the platform at all.
Yeah. So that's the end goal, right? Is to not need any of the marketing platforms at all.
Yeah. So I was reading the book, Russell Brunson. It's a popular book.
.com Secrets.
.com Secrets. And he's got another one, Expert Secrets, that I've heard one of my mentors told me he liked better. But I really like .com Secrets. It's all about sales funnels and that sort of thing. But he talks about traffic you own, traffic you control and traffic you don't control.
Traffic you own, traffic you control,
and then traffic you don't control.
You don't control. Okay.
Yes. And it's a whole book, so I can't explain the whole thing, but basically he's talking about where does your customer come from? And in his world, traffic that you control are like you run a Facebook ad, or you pay for, Google click-through ads, or you market on, in our world, an Airbnb, or I market on a HomeAway, or I market on a booking.com, because ultimately I'm paying for that customer, and it's traffic I control because it's traffic that they really own through their marketing and being Airbnb and booking.com from their direct advertising and their ads that they run. And I've noticed HomeAway has started aggressively marketing on Facebook.
On Facebook?
Yes. So I will get targeted Facebook ads, especially because I'm on HomeAway and Vrbo, just looking at other people's listings and my own and how they look. I will get targeted Facebook ads for HomeAway and Vrbo. But that's traffic that I control in a sense because I'm paying them to do that. That's why I'm giving them the fee. I look at it a lot like running a Facebook ad and getting traffic from that. But it's not traffic that I own. It's their traffic. But once I get a customer, there's no reason I can't ask them what their email address and phone number is and start compiling my own list. And now if I, have 100 or 200 people that have stayed with me in the past year, there's nothing to say I can't now email out to them or send them my own ads or whatever and say, hey, if you're, looking for a trip back to Charlotte, come stay with us.
That is pure genius.
Now this is traffic I own because I know who they are and I can email them directly. And ultimately that's where now I don't, theoretically I don't need Airbnb anymore. So if those people come back to me and want to book direct, they're coming back to the area and they want to stay with us again because they had a good experience. Well, for example, on the fee structure on Airbnb we were just talking about was 3% on our side as the operator and 10 to 12% on their side. Well, that means now I can offer them a price that's, say, 5% lower than they could get it on Airbnb from their perspective, but is also 5% more than I would have gotten on Airbnb from my perspective.
Right, because
I'm not giving that marketing fee back away to Airbnb. So I can kind of split it with the customer, so to speak.
Right, because the customer's already willing to pay that extra percent.
Yeah, like in your example, they paid $700. We ended up with $500.
So why not?
Which it isn't really that way because they're taking 10 to 12%. So it's, they paid $700. We got $620 or something like that.
Yeah. So why not give the customer a discount?
But why not say, hey, we'll give it to you for $650? Well, now I just made $30 more and they saved $50.
Yeah, that's a win-win situation right there.
That's a win-win. So that's now traffic I control. So I don't want to be an Airbnb business. I want to be Queen City Suites with my own list of customers and my own, roll of clientele, and not worried about whether, Airbnb is doing a good job marketing for me, or not worrying about, if my margins get slimmer, I can be leaner and meaner because I can charge less because I'm not paying Airbnb to get my customer for me, as compared to my competition who considers themselves an Airbnb business and that's their only channel. Or they're only using platforms, because no matter what platform you're on, they're basically charging that 15%. On the other extreme, booking.com does not charge the customer a thing, but they still charge 15% to the host. So my net's the same, but it means my pricing needs to be different over there. because I've got to charge enough to absorb not 3%, but 15% on booking.com, right?
Oh, we should have a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, that's a
on-
whole other discussion. That's a whole other discussion.
Right? We should talk about that next.
And so we kind of went down that rabbit hole, but that's ultimately where I want to be, is where I'm not, which platform do you want to be on? None of them.
So the ultimate goal is to not be on any platform at all, is to be able to get enough business from your direct bookings from your own website.
It is. But you don't necessarily start there, right? I mean, you're going to start on an Airbnb, and you're going to start, and then you're going to add a HomeAway, and then you're going to add a booking.com. But while you're thinking about that, think about those as marketing channels and realize that they themselves market to different people, like we said before. So what I'm looking for from an Airbnb is the different customer that I'm looking for from a HomeAway. And it's a different customer that I'm looking for from a booking.com. Because I know a booking.com customer will book further out and they will pay more for whatever reason. And I know that a booking.com customer is looking for a discount, not a low price to begin with. So they would rather see it's $200 with a 20% discount than it's $180 with no discount. That's the way they promote things on booking.com. But I know that I can get further out bookings that'll pay more on booking.com. And I know that on Airbnb, on the other extreme, I'm looking at a customer base that wants the cheapest price possible, the closest in possible.
Yeah, Airbnb customers tend to book.
They tend, at least in our business, they tend to book within 10 to 7 days, 7 to 10 days.
Pretty close in, yeah.
So that's a week. So if I'm only on Airbnb, I'm looking at my calendar saying, hey, it doesn't look that great, but I know from the data, at least in our business in Charlotte, with the locations we have and the customer type we target on Airbnb, 10 days out, 7 to 10 days out is about when I get a booking. So I get bookings for next week, not next month. But for example, I just got a booking on booking.com for November.
Yeah, and
it's now
August,
like the beginning of August. And HomeAway tends to be a little bit further out too. They're kind of in between.
They're kind of in between, I noticed.
They're kind of in between. Airbnb markets to people that want a cheaper place than a hotel. A HomeAway books to people that want a home away from home. So they tend to be people looking for like whole homes and longer stays, and they tend to be a little older crowd too.
And families.
Yes, and they tend to book a little further out. A booking.com tends to be people that are planning like vacation for, far out.
Yep.
And they go there, start looking and planning their trip and things like that. And that's why I will get a November booking in August on booking.com for a higher price. And that's why I will get a booking on Airbnb for next week at a lower price for the same exact property, because they're marketing to two different types of customers. But if you know that, you can use that to your advantage, meaning I can be on booking.com for a higher price and start getting those further out bookings, and then use a HomeAway kind of in that middle span to start filling in my calendar. And then close in, I don't care that Airbnb's cheaper, because if I've done a good job on booking.com and I've done a good job on HomeAway, I don't have that many days to fill on an Airbnb, and I can give them away for lower prices because I've already made my money on booking.com and HomeAway.
Oh my gosh, that is a beautiful strategy.
Does that make sense?
It does.
So it's not all about like, hey, I just want to be exposed to more people. In a sense, you're right, but I want to be exposed to different customer types and different lengths of reservations. And it's how they all mesh together that allows you to actually get a complete calendar and be profitable, and be maybe more profitable than you would be if you weren't thinking of it that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a really good business mindset to have, is to, first of all, realize that Airbnb, HomeAway, and Verbo and all them are simply marketing channels.
Yes, who themselves market to different customer types.
I mean, that realization in itself is a really good way to think about it.
Yes.
And it's necessary to think about it with that mindset in order to be profitable.
Yes. If you're looking to scale, I mean, if you have one, it doesn't matter. If you have three, it probably doesn't matter. But if you're looking at this as a business and you want to run this as a business and be profitable overall and over the long term, you have to start thinking about things like that. What is my cost to acquire a customer? Right? That's kind of a higher level, well, not higher. It's just a more advanced way of thinking than I have an Airbnb. And it's not to, talk down to anybody. It's to actually encourage you to think, hey, if I want to grow and scale this, maybe I need to be thinking on a little bit different level, thinking on a little bit different way, because that's how I'm going to get to where I want to go.
That is beautiful.
Because look, if I'm just competing with you on Airbnb and I've already made my money on booking.com and I've already made my money on HomeAway and it's this month and we're competing for the same customers on Airbnb 7 to 10 days out, I'm just giving my places away. Because for me, I've already made my money. If I get $10 a night, that's $10 more than I had. Because I've already met my, minimums for the month. Where you're like, how can you price your properties that way and be profitable?
And that's how.
It's just a tip.
Well, it's all mindset though.
It is, but just to say, don't hear that and then say, oh, well, I'm just going to put everything on every platform to start out, because you will get burned.
Yeah, that's not a good idea.
It's going to overwhelm you, first of all. And second of all, you're going to make mistakes that are going to hurt you. So take your time at it, slowly grow it, start out on Airbnb, do it for a while, maybe add HomeAway after a while, get really good at those two, make the mistakes you're going to make, then move on to a booking.com. Make more mistakes, figure all that out, how you can make all those three work together well, and then start taking direct bookings. And so we actually do all four of those now. Those are the 4 channels we are currently on.
Yeah, well, we didn't start that way for sure.
That way.
We've had to, we've built up over a year.
And taking direct bookings is the most businessy of all of them, meaning it just takes more work and logistics and systems and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it takes time to build those things.
But it's also the most profitable. Yeah,
so it's not a get rich quick.
None of it is.
Type of thing. No, this is not a get rich quick business.
It's not. But that's my kind of talk on the different platforms and why you might want to choose one or the other, and where I personally recommend you start. And that's what was taught to me, and that's what's worked for us. So I think that's a lot to think about as far as platform goes. And then ultimately, of course, you don't want to be on a platform at all.
Yeah, that's all really, really great advice. I love it. Well, let's wrap this up.
Okay.
It's been about an hour, hasn't it?
It's been 43, 45 minutes.
That's pretty close. All right. Well, I hope you have found some value, and I'm sure that you had, because John just dropped a whole bunch of nuggets right there. If you have any questions about any of this that you heard, you're welcome to email us at info@thecashflowcouple.com. And we also have a Facebook page at The Cashflow Couple. So let us know what you think. If you have any questions or want us to... the dog is barking. All right. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.